Welding is a very fun hobby, and it also can get you some nice cash when you can start welding and doing work for others. For those of you who are just starting out, this is a beginner's type video to give you a few tips and a little bit of an introduction welding with the Mig welder. FWAC, Flux Core Arc Welding. That's what we're going to be doing today. Right there I have a tank, and that's for the non-shielded wire, which I'll show you about later. To begin with, I don't have a 220 in my garage, so what I did is I went out and I bought a 50-foot welder's cord. You can see it's wrapped around there, and it goes through the wall and goes over to the dryer plug for our dryer. So I made an adapter, plug it into the closed dryer 220 outlet, and I bring it over and I hook it up to my welder and I hook it up to my plasma cutter, and it works great. So this is the Lincoln 180, and it's a 220 welder, and those are your settings on the front that you'll learn about when you want to get to weld thicker metal. And this is the speed of the wire as it comes out. If you get it cranked up too high, it'll start poking into the metal, and you know you've got trouble. And if it's too low, it'll burn off and you'll just get it going bzzzt, bzzzt, and until the wire catches up. So you want to time your speed. How do you know where to start? Well, there's a chart under the lid of all your welders, and with a little bit of studying you'll catch on to it. Over here it's got the gauge of the wire. So how do you know what gauge you're dealing with? First trick is right here. I have this little tool that measures the different thickness of your metal. You slide the metal through these slots along the edge, and it will tell you what thickness of metal you're dealing with. You can see the gauges there. So you take, and let's say you're doing 20 gauge, there's 20, and that'll fit through the metal you're welding. So you go up here and you look at 20 gauge. And this is Flux Core welding here, under here, and so they don't start you with that, but they start you with the non-gas shielded, so you need to have the tank. 18 gauge is where they start, and it shows you how to hook up. This is kind of confusing. I had it hooked up. A fellow wrote me an email, said it's hooked up wrong. I double guessed myself, and I hooked it up backwards, and I welded like that. And the only difference you find, like some people say you're going to get horrible looking welds and no penetration in that. All I found was there's a little more splatter, but I'm not a professional trained welder. But anyway, do it right. Do it the way the chart says. And if you follow this, that's your ground clamp, and you can see where it goes over to hook up your ground. And when you do the non-flux core welding, it shows you how to hook up the cable, and it goes over to the negative on that side. And there, right in there, is a short little wire. That's your hot wire. And so if you study that out, it'll show you how to set your arc. And down at the bottom it tells you the degrees. One of the things, if you get this degree wrong when you're welding, and let's say you lean it too much instead of say your 15 degree or whatever they have, you'll get more splatter as well. So it may not be that you're doing anything wrong, it's just you've got to learn the angle of the arc. And all of these little tricks, give yourself time and you'll find you do just fine. So just be patient if you want. This is a great little tool to have, and it's a gauge for measuring sheet plate and iron and steel, whatever you're going to be welding, and that makes it easier. Another thing you want to have welding is a grinder, and you can buy these for anywhere from I think $25 and up when you get them on sale. And this here is a cut-off wheel, so you can cut metal with that because it's nice and thin, or you can use a grinding wheel which is thicker, and grind your metals. Those are a nice addition that you will need if you're welding. Also, you probably want to get yourself a magnet. I just have one. But the advantage of this is you need to hold your metal straight. So if you put it on different angles here, you can see that that's straight up and down now. This here gives you about, I don't know what that is, 45 degree, and this here is another degree. So as you go along, you can see it'll hold your metal straight. So I really like this for getting started going and putting something on square that I've got to weld. It'll hold it true for you. So you can buy one of these magnets. They're around $5 or so. Another thing you'll want is a wire brush, and that's to brush your welds after. A square is really good for if you want to know, something straight. Sometimes after you tack a weld and you start it off and it's really nice and straight, as the square will show you, or the magnet, and when you tack it, all of a sudden it'll want to bend a little bit. So don't worry about it. That can be common. Just take and tap with a hammer. Check your welds that way and check it this way so it doesn't move, sideways or back and forth, and just tack the other side. You're on your way. That's a handy tool to have. These here are Mig Welding Pliers. Right in here you've got the little notch that you wrap around the tip of your torch to change your ends, because if you're using Flux Core 30 gauge or Flux Core 35 gauge, you'll need to change your tips out. These pliers are for holding your metal, and then they've got a cutter in here because you want about a ½ inch of welding rod sticking out of the end of the arc welder stinger. Something else you'll want to have on hand is some nozzle gel. I use this, I try to use it every time I weld at least once. All it is a little bit of a gel that helps with the lubricating of the wire coming through, and splatter protects a little bit. So I just take and use some of that on. You will probably want to get a jar of that. It's not bad, it'll last a long time. It's somewhere around $10. If you're having trouble burning through because you're just learning how to weld, or you want to fill a hole in a piece of metal, one of the things you can use is an aluminum plate. You put that over and you weld, and the aluminum will take the heat away quite rapidly and give you a little bit more of a chance to weld and learn what you're doing before you get discouraged. A good pair of welding gloves should come with your welder when you buy it. Save on the fingers. And a nice chipping hammer, somewhere around $8 or $10, and you're away. So you need a few tools. The other thing is, I talked about the non-flux cord welder. The shielding gas for this wire is produced by that bottle that I showed you there when we started. You can see this wire here is just straight copper. There is no shield on it, and the other type of wire has the gas inside the rod, so it's shielded, and as you weld the gas comes out. On this type of wire you need the gas to be sent out from the bottle to produce the shield for the arc to weld without the interference of the air and impurities. The advantage to flux core wire, which is without the gas, is the wind. If you're welding with any kind of wind, this here wire without the flux core, the wind can blow the argon away and cause you problem welding. And also this has to have cleaner metal. With flux core you can weld on a little more rust or impure metal. So that's basically a rundown of the difference between the material and that when you're welding. Now you'll need to ground all your work. There's two ways to grounding. One of them is you can take your grounding wire and you can ground to a metal plate like I have here. So when you ground, it might be a little bit harder to start because then you can move your metal around, and as long as it touches, you can weld. The other way is to pinch the metal with the ground clamp to a steel plate like that, or just pinch it by itself. That way there. It doesn't matter, as long as you're getting a good ground, you're going to be okay, and you'll be able to start your welding. So you can just ground anywhere. And once you've run your wire in, here's the flux core. You can see it's a silver looking wire, the other was copper. On this machine, you'll have to look at the diagram how they say to install it. The wire and spool turn this way, and it feeds into here. You just lift it up. You make sure you look on here if you got the proper number. It tells you the proper number wheel. If you don't have the proper number wheel for the proper wire, it can give you some slippage problems. You flip the top down and you lock it in, and you can set your tension by turning this screw there. You don't want it too tight. You want it to pull through nicely. You can see I've got my ground on the negative wire, and that's just the way that it says on the chart for flux core wire. So we're doing 20 gauge, but I'm going to be able to weld it because I can just regulate the speed and that and do it. I don't have any 18 gauge right now or any other thickness, so it'll work. And we're going to close the lid and get the helmet. I have a helmet that's automatically adjusted, adjust to the light, and inside it's got the 3 dials for delay, shade, and sensitivity. So you can set that to your liking, how quick you want the weld to start and how quick you want it to darken and how much light is affecting you. So you can play around with those settings. What I did is I put a flap on the front of this helmet. And what this does here is when you're welding, it goes and it protects your chest a bit, and you won't have to burn so many holes through your clothes. That's just to protect mainly the front of your shirt from sparks, and it's really handy. Another thing you want to do is clean this lens. Can you see the way that the smoke from the weld builds up? And it'll give you a problem if it gets too much for seeing, so don't forget to clean it inside, sometimes outside. This lens comes off your helmet, just snaps off, and you can take this lens out. And what I do sometimes is I clean the inside, because you can get smoke or dust or whatever it is, makes it hard to see through. Clean it off with your hands if you need. The bottom part is your solar. Then you just slide your protective lens back in, and these little clips right there just clip into locking down your cover edges there. Make sure you get it around all sides. And there, it's nice and flat, and now you've got a clean lens to start. So check that quite often. Of course, you can adjust how easy it flips up and down by that. This here is for the head size. You push in and turn and loosen or tighten it for your head. This cart that I have here has holders on the sides, which I really like. I just wrap my cables around there, and the switch, turn it on in the front. Now I'm going to show you that for this wire here, I've got it set on A, and I've got that set on, I'm going to put it Oh, I'll say about 1.5. Hope that's not shading it out, because we've got a light material. What we're going to do is start off with a very common weld that you can begin with, and it's basically a spot weld. And a spot weld is when you want to tack metal. On some applications you can do a number of spot welds and create a weld, which I'll show you about in a minute. So you can see the end of the stinger here. I want about a 1/2 inch of rod to come out. See there? Now I'm ready to start. And we're just going to go down. The ground is on the metal, so I'm just going to touch it and create a spot weld. Okay, just come over and view, and you can see I've got a little spot weld there. Now you'll be surprised how strong that is. Now what you can do is you can practice putting 2 or 20 of them together. You just overlap each one just a little bit. And you can go right along and create a full weld that way. Now, that doesn't look very good there. I've heated it up quite a bit. Stayed a little bit too long. But anyway, if you practice, I'm having trouble with my ground, I guess. You can see how I've started going up. Just get in on the weld there. That was traveling up, and the next one we can go and just go sideways on it. So I'm going to turn down my speed a little bit. It started pushing on the weld like I was saying, and we'll go sideways now. Try to remember to hold this at about 15 degrees. If it leans too much, you'll get more splatter. Now, did you see how much better that was? Now notice I got a little hole. Now watch how you fill a hole. Like this. And that hole is filled. So you can just take your chipping hammer and chip it off. So don't worry about that. If you get one, you'll eventually weld so you don't get any holes at all. If you're having trouble, like I said, use an aluminum plate underneath. Some people say practice until you can write your name. That's a letter B. Whatever your name is, you can take and practice until you can write your name. So basically from there, what you do is, if I had more pieces here, I just wanted to get you started on practicing a bead. You can go up, you can go down, you can go straight vertical, all of that. Just practice a little bit, whatever way you want. Set your metal and get started. So those were not my best welds, but sometimes I do good ones, sometimes you can do better. The point is to practice. Running a weld, you can do circles, you can do letter C's. Some people feel the best that works for them is like a letter Z, or a Z as you'd say in the States. Just trim off a little bit here with my pliers. Just grab them and snip it off. And this is for tightening or changing the ends. That's what that's for. And some people say just go kind of a little bit back and forth in a Z. And that's a Z there, but let's take it now closer together. See how I'm moving the rod? Oh, got a hole. All right, let's fill it. So you can see if you're getting yourself in trouble. You can just fill the hole over and grind it off and you'll be away. So when you want to weld on the sides, in another video I'll show you how to get proper penetration on a weld and you'll be fine. I know somebody's going to write in and say those aren't great welds, or what are you doing trying to show somebody when you can't weld that good? Well, actually, if I set up a little bit better and had to do some more, we could get you better welds, and hopefully on the next one. Most of these are decent and they will hold, and that's the main thing. So have fun, practice and try it. I've built bumpers and trailer hitches, and I've welded on auto body and put in rusted panels. That spot weld, one after the other, will work. And if you're doing welding a panel in the car and you want to separate the space, that's good. You can do say a ½ inch of spot welds, go up and do another ½ inch and stagger your welds like that, and then go back and add the other ½ inch on top of each one until you close them all together. Then run over it with the grinder, make it smooth, and you're going to end up with a really good job. Spray on the inside with some tar or some auto body panel tar. I forget what they call it right now, rocker panel guard and that, and you'll be on your way. So I hope this has helped you guys to get going. Practice the spot welds. You saw I burnt through. One was deliberate, one wasn't. Just go back and patch the holes and don't worry about it, and get yourself proper metal, and you'll do great. Okay, thanks for watching, and I hope this has helped you.